Hello. What if I told you that compassion, not criticism, is the key to building resilience to deal with difficult times, right? In today's session, I will take you through three self compassion practices that will help you to deal with stress, deal with the uncertainty that we are living with today, and to help you build resilience in the long run. So, if you like what I have to say, make sure that you sign up for my podcast, which is called Nourish Heal Connect. I've shared the link below, where I share with you some nuggets about self care, about nourishment, about connecting with yourself, on various topics related to physical and emotional health. And I think that you will find them really valuable. So click on the link and sign up to be notified of the new podcast episodes. So in today's session, what I'm going to take you through are three self-compassion practices that you can start to use today, right? This will help you to stop the inner voice, the inner critic that usually comes along. So, for what happens for most of us is that when we are faced with a difficult time or when we are very stressed, is usually the inner critic which comes out, and it's that voice that we can hear telling us many times that we are a failure, or we are, we are no good, or we are simply not enough, right? And that's something that we lot of times start believing in that voice. So the reason that that we lot of times that we come across this kind of criticism and we believe it because this voice has been there with us since we were kids, right? It has developed over years and years of our experience through adverse experiences, even into adverse experiences in childhood, conditioning from the society. So for many different reasons, we've sort of imbibed the messages that these voices that we've been telling ourselves, these belief systems that we have developed, and we soon start to obviously believe them, and we continue to believe that this is true, even though they may not be that anymore. But I'm not talking about that particular part today. What I'm talking about are some self-compassion practices that you can use to help yourself to show some kindness towards yourself, so that you can take care of yourself when you need to in a more effective manner, right? And this is particularly true when you're going through high periods of stress, or you're going through some difficult times, most of which may be out of your control. So you cannot really change anything about your circumstances. And this is when compassion can really help you. And while you cannot change your life circumstances, you can certainly build resiliency so that you have the strength to cope with that, right? And compassion is one tool that you have at your disposal, and I'm going to share with you three ways of doing that. So the first way is to give yourself a self-compassion break. This works really well if you struggle to, if you feel alone when you're stressed, you feel isolated, and you believe that you are the only one who's sort of going through this issue. When you start practicing self-compassion breaks, and I'll share exactly what I mean by that, you will soon realize that you are not alone in this, right? And what you realize is that there are ways to work around this. And what I mean by a self-compassionate break is to just pause when you're feeling upset, when you're feeling sad, and when you're quite stressed and overwhelmed. Maybe just pausing at that particular time and simply noticing how you feel and saying to yourself, acknowledging to yourself that this hurts, right? I am hurting, or ouch. Something that sort of stops you in your tracks as you try to ignore this. But ignoring it is not really helpful in the long run. So what you're doing here is taking a break and simply pausing to acknowledge the pain that you're going through, right? And again, using words that resonate with you. So I am hurting, this hurts, right? So something that you can connect with. And this need not take more than a few minutes to maybe 5 minutes or 10 minutes, depending on how deep you want to get into this. But just doing this for a couple of minutes in your day can really help. So whenever you notice yourself getting stressed about, worked up about something, and you know that it's not going to help you, you can sort of ground yourself using a self-compassionate break. Because what happens is, while the situation may not improve per se, your response to it can be made from a place of strength, right? You can be responsive rather than reactive. So that's the first thing that I wanted to share with you, which is indulging in self-compassion breaks as and when you need them, and doing them consistently. The second thing is journaling. Now, you may not like writing a lot, but just the act of writing down, expressing and labeling your emotions can really help. This works really well for you. This will work really well for you if you have trouble understanding how you're feeling, right? And or maybe you know how you're feeling, but you're not able to express your emotions, and you feel yourself getting swept away by these strong emotions. This journaling can really help you with that, because when you are journaling, then you can be more mindful about how you're feeling. You can take a step back and acknowledge whether you're angry, whether you're disappointed, whether you're frustrated, whether you're worried, whether you're apprehensive. So the more emotion words that you can use, that you can come up with, the more clarity that you have, the better it will be it will help you to really get a hold of your emotions, get a hold of yourself. The other thing that can help you is to be, when you're writing, when you're journaling, to be kind to yourself, using phrases and sentences which sort of show kindness towards yourself, right? So you can, that's completely up to you what you want to write, but just writing that down really helps to connect with yourself. And last but not the least, to acknowledge, when you're in terms of words, acknowledging the common humanity, that we are, I am not the only one who feels like this. There's so many others who are going through the similar things, and they're also feeling the same. So it's okay, right? So journaling can be a very, very powerful tool. So the first one that I mentioned was self-compassion break, which I mentioned is very, very useful if you feel alone, if you feel lonely, isolated in times of stress. The second one is journaling. Journaling can come in really handy if you get swept away by your emotions, or if you struggle to express them, understand how you feel. And the third one is treating yourself as a friend. I find this one of the most powerful tools that we can use to show compassion for ourselves and build resiliency and deal with adverse situations in the long run. This is a practice that I use a lot with my own clients in my private coaching practice. In my private coaching practice, I work one-on-one with women who have autoimmune and other chronic health conditions. And it's not enough to teach them or guide them in terms of diet, lifestyle, etc. As far as that particular condition is concerned. A lot of times what I find is that it really helps to show that kindness towards ourselves, to treating ourselves better as we deserve to, right? Otherwise we simply don't end up doing the things that are good for us. That's where treating yourself as a friend comes in. And the way it works is that what you do is you find or you think through a time that you have been going, time of difficulty or a stressful period in your life, and you imagine that there is a friend who is going through the similar situation, right? So imagining a friend who is going through a similar situation, who is going through a difficult period of life, and then imagining what you would say to that friend, what tone of voice you would use, what words you would use, right? You would not berate that friend for feeling that way. You would not belittle that that friend of yours. If you really care for your friend, you would be caring towards him or her. You would be using words, which will encourage and support your friends. You would be using a kind tone of voice, right? Now, using that, you can either write a letter to yourself as you would to a friend, or it helps to really write it down actually. So I would highly recommend that writing a letter to yourself as you would an imaginary friend. So again, visualizing that if a friend were to be in the position that you're in the difficult situation that you're in, what would you say to that friend? What words would you use? So just writing that down. So when you have visualized this, it helps to then sit down and write a letter to yourself, right? Writing a letter just as you would to a friend, that I'm sorry that you feel, in terms of, I'm sorry that you feel this way. You know that I'm there for you. You know that I will take care of you. It's okay to feel upset. It's okay to feel sad. I will do my best to support you, right? To encourage you, to motivate you, to keep you going. That's what you would do with a friend, not criticize, right? So it's doing the same thing for yourself. So this is a very, very powerful tool that you have access to from today to use compassion as a practice to build resiliency, right? Because again, while you may not have control over your external circumstances and what's happening around you, in your family, in your environment, in the world at large, you definitely have control over your own responses and how you respond to that situation. That's what we are focusing on with these self-compassion practices. So the first one that I mentioned was taking a self-compassion break, which is again very, very useful if you feel that you're all alone in this situation, if you feel isolated. It can really help to take this pause from time to time and acknowledge how you're feeling. The second one was journaling with mindfulness, with acknowledging common humanity, that all of us are in this together. You're not the only one facing this situation. Being mindful about what you're going through and showing yourself some kindness, right? So again, journaling can be completely up to you what you want to write, but just taking a few moments, maybe at the end of your day, to write down to yourself some words of kindness, right? Keeping all this in mind can really help. And last but not the least, treating yourself as a friend. So visualizing a friend who's in need, who's in a very similar situation that you might be in, or having struggling through with a similar issue that you're struggling with currently, and just writing down the letter, just thinking through what you would say to that friend, what words you would use, what tone of voice, and maybe just writing a letter to yourself based on that, right? So these are three self-compassion practices that I've shared with you today. This will help you to support yourself. This will help you to motivate yourself. This will help you to give yourself the resiliency that you need to overcome the challenges from a place of strength. So rather than feeling helpless, rather than feeling that you're not in charge at all of your life, because so many things are not in your control, of course. Most things in our lives are not in our control. But rather than feeling all disempowered and helpless about it, these self-compassion practices can empower you and make you more resilient in the long run, right? It takes practice, so you need to keep doing this time and time again before you get a hang of it and before you start seeing the results. None of this happens overnight, but very quite simple but very powerful practices that you can start doing from today. So if you like what I have to say, make sure that you sign up for my podcast. It's called Nourish Heal Connect. It's available on all the leading platforms, including iTunes, etc. I'm sharing the link. You can click on that so that to be notified of any new podcast episodes. And there as well, I share with you many of what I have just talked about, whether it's about mindfulness, whether it's about compassion, gratitude, self-care practices, anything and everything to do with your emotional and physical well-being is what I share with you in my podcast as well. So make sure that you sign up today. Thank you so much for joining me.